Hello students, let's start our next lecture. Today is lecture number 11, Ground-air Habitat for Animals by discipline Ecology of Animals and Plants and Biogeography. So the plan of today's lecture is ground-air habitat first and levels of ground-air habitat. Purpose of the lecture is to form students' knowledge about ground-air habitat of animals. So what is the ground-air habitat? This habitat of animals, organisms is characterized by the greatest variety of environmental factors. Only if you were able to master it, namely mollusks, arthropods, and chordates. Oxygen, due to the constantly height in this habitat, content in the atmosphere is conditioned here, not air resources. Only in the mountains, due to the low partial pressure of oxygen, problems may arise with the supply to the body. For vertebrates, the upper limit of adaptive capabilities is considered to be the height of 2,600 above meter sea. So, who are the ground-air habitat animals? In this picture, you can see the animals which habitat in the ground air or in the water. So the low density of the air causes is low living force and significant support. Land animals must have a perfect muscular system based on external. For example, first is arthropods. Arthropods, they have external scalation. Or internal is we are chordates, mechanical scalation, or cavity, they are caterpillar and the pseudo husks, or cellular intercellular scalation. So they they must have the good musculature scalation which live for ground air habitat. The same circumstance impose resistance of the maximum body size in vertebrates. Vertebrates, they are the largest group of animals which live in the ground air habitat. In this picture, you can see the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, they are the first animals which live in the ground air habitat and with a large size. At present would be impossible science since the bone tissues are not able to withstand the modern weight of their body. Approximately 3/4 of terrestrial animals have the ability to fly. For example, insects, birds, mammals, such as bats, as well as individual reptiles and amphibians. Some tree frogs, they can fly. However, no animal spends its entire life in the air. They can fly, but they don't spend their most time in the air. So they can fly. Next is how the temperature is influenced to the ground air habitat of animals. The temperature conditions on land are constanting, from constantly negative to extremely high temperature above the 70 degree of or more. On the surface of sand illuminated by the direct rays of the midday sun at low latitudes, in wet biotopes, their temperature is sufficiently stable. In dry, the daily temperature course can be an order and magnitude higher. For example, in Sahara Desert, daytime heat does not prevent frost at night. in the winter and in the summer. Living organisms as a habitat. How the living organisms can be as a habitat for animals. Yes, we have living organisms as a habitat for parasites, for parasite organisms. The use of living organisms as a habitat, a widespread phenomenon in an animal world. Probably there is not a single species of multicellular organisms completely free for parasites. Even the amoebas have intercellular parasite. The higher the level of organization and the greater of degree of morpho-histological differentiation, the more variable are a potential habitat of parasite. The living organisms can be the habitat for parasitic animals. All parasitic animals, they have hosts. The hosts can be divided into the two types. First is the Stanley host and the externally hosts. So these types of parasitic animals, they can live in the living organisms for their living, for their reproduction, for their nutrition, and all these life. Some types of parasitic organisms, they can live in the living organism, but some types of parasitic organisms, they can live standly in this organism. The habitat of living organisms is, yes, probably. The parasitic lifestyle has a number of advantages, namely virtuality, unlimited feed resources. First is protection from the direct adverse effects of environmental factors. They can be high temperature, indirect effects, the changes of the environmental conditions or other environmental conditions. They can protect from them. Next is relative stability of the conditions of existence of parasites. Based on this, the parasite as a whole of interested in preserving the life of its host. The exception is the so-called parasitoid, the development of which naturally leads to the death of the host. The absolute majority in this group of parasites are parasitic insects. In this picture, you can see the life cycle of parasitic animals. A number of taxa of parasitic animals have developed complex biological cycles in which various methods of reproduction are involved, including heterogony and metagenesis. Heterogony is the alternation of true sexual and pathogenetic reproduction. They can be spores, amphibians, and nutworms. And the next is metagenesis, alternation of sexual and asexual generation. They can be parasitic, worms, or other small organisms. So, dear students, in this lecture we learned about the habitats as a ground-air habitat and the living habitat. How they live in these habitats, how the environmental factors influence for this habitat. So I think it's enough for today. Thank you. Goodbye.